and it's a lot of tribalism.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons you mentioned earlier, like you have friends who are scared that if they vote for Trump, they'll no longer be seen as liberal.
Yeah.
And I think it's because their tribalism is survival. It's a survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
So if you've got people who don't have the independence, the self-esteem to live on their own, they're very likely going to just do whatever the tribe says. And just many of them will believe it because it's the safe bet, just to go with the flow and hope the collective protects you.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of people, it's no surprise that it's, conservatives, individualists, personal responsibility, who challenge that narrative. I think what's happening now is the unifying force between what brings liberals over to conservatives is the true liberals, like the actual word liberal, classical liberalism, not, this whatever mainstream is. It's individualism. It's
yes.
the right of free expression, freedom of speech, individual rights, liberty.
Individualism is the antidote to collectivism, whether that collectivism is racism or sexism, and that's the only thing that's ever pushed it back. And now we're moving away from that in the name, and they're saying it's for this good cause, and they used to not openly. So they used to hide the fact that they were opposed to individualism, but the ideology is in a new phase now. In the past 2 months or so, it's really ramped up, and I'm sure you've seen it's all the major corporations are speaking it. McDonald's is telling me about racial stuff.
Right,
Like,
seriously.
Just give me a cheeseburger.
Right. They're all speaking it. It's in churches. It's in hobby groups. It's in your kids' school. There's a book called Anti-Racism Baby. It's teaching babies. But it's everywhere now. And it's, I'm losing my train of thought about it ramping up. What were you saying right before that?
I don't remember.
Oh,
You got me laughing. And
I got
now
you laughing. I'm sorry.
It's anti-racism baby in schools. Did you see the leaked curriculum from this?
Oh, I've seen so much leaked curriculum in the past few years. Tell me which one.
It's this particular math problem I've mentioned probably several times now,
Yeah.
but where we used to do math problems that were like, if a farmer has, 17,000 apples and his warehouse can hold 13,000, what percentage will rot? There was a math problem. It was like, if the police, stop and detain, 10,002 white people, but 3,400 black people, what percentage of black people are being detained by the police?
Right.
And it's like, what are you putting in this math problem? That has nothing to do with teaching kids math. We do apples and
they're slipping that in.
Yes, it's through the side. So the actual problem is, just a regular math problem, but they're seeding all this stuff, and it is creepy.
So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, part of what's happened in the past 2 months is also that, and I was talking about this with you earlier, Lydia, or maybe with Tiffany, but so there used to be on social media, there was this group of people who, they weren't social justice evangelists like I was. They weren't actively preaching it, but they had sort of casually accepted a lot of the tenets of the ideology.
Yeah.
And those people really didn't preach it or push it or anything. And a lot of them, for example, were the kind of women who would do just like a lot of selfies or look how great my family life is. I have the perfect family. Look at all my kids. My life's awesome. Keeping up with the Joneses on social media, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those basic normies have been activated. And I don't know if you've noticed, but in the past 2 months, a lot of those people who used to post just selfies and look at my great life are suddenly posting constant social justice stuff.
Yep.
And it's almost like sleeper cells. They got turned on. I think of it that way. Yeah, they had tacitly accepted some of the premises of the belief system. They had soaked it up by osmosis. And then in the past 2 months, the belief system said, okay, now you're going to prove that you're in this cult.
That is really interesting because I know that you are coming from a leftward position.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing the exact opposite with some of my Facebook friends. I have I have a few lady friends who I've known for multiple years. I used to work with them, and they are turning more and more conservative. And I was like, I never would have expected this from my crystal collecting hippie friend.
Oh,
both of them
wow.
are. Yeah, my crystal collecting hippie friends are turning conservative, and I'm like, what is going on here? People are being more and more upfront with their politics.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's happening or if it's good or bad.
I think that's a response to what I was talking about, which is now it's become so dominant. Maybe you've got this reaction starting to happen, or people are waking up, or people, like I said, are leaving the left because it's become almost too much.
Are you familiar with Ryan Long, the comedian?
Yes, I saw his really funny.
He's got the super viral woke and racist guys.
Yes,
and they get along on everything. He has another one where it's left and right, and they're trying to pick basketball teams.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's so good. It's another really good one. The left wing guy is just constantly yelling and insulting, and he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You're a racist. I'm gonna take a picture. I'm taking your picture." And then the one guy goes, "My boss just called me. I got fired." And then the dude on the right goes, "Just play with me, man. I don't care." And they're like, I'm gonna go play with this guy." The dude walks over, and the guy with the right wing shirt goes, "Hey, you see that Trump video is pretty reasonable, right?" And it's like, "Yeah, whatever. I don't care." But so like the left is just it's become so angry and bombastic that it's pushing people away.
Yeah.
Of all types. Like, do you see that famous Marianne Williamson video? She's the hippie crystal woo-woo lady.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, she's not really the crystal woo-woo lady. Like, that's what they called her.
She's so nice.
And she's so nice, and that was
her.
mean.
I really liked her. Yeah.
I did. I liked her too. So, I mean, for one thing, the media just relentlessly tore her apart as the crystal woo-woo lady. Yeah. And she's like, "I don't own any crystals. That's crazy."
Poor lady.
And then she was on Fox, and it was kind of a hot mic moment where she was just shocked, like, why are the conservatives so nice to me and the left is so mean?
Yeah, I remember that.
And then she kind of got mad because they published it.
Well, it's true. And I mean, we'll look at Brett Weinstein, for example, the Evergreen College fiasco. He went on Fox News, which they took as even further evidence of his evil. But yeah, because Fox News is the only legacy media that would talk to him, because the rest of the legacy media they've got their one narrative they're going to push. And if your story doesn't fit it, they're not going to cover it.
They can't let you go.
They can't.
How crazy is it? I grew up with Fox News being fake news. And
I mean, yeah, me too.
And today Fox News is like, they're accurately reporting on what's going on. They're biased.
They are biased.
But it's to their benefit to, I mean, they've been kind of negative on Trump in certain circumstances that made him angry. Yeah. They brought on Bernie Sanders for a town hall. They hired Donna Brazile. I'm like, Fox News is trying to capture the moderates and the liberals, man.
Yeah. And guess what? It's working.
If
I have to watch legacy media now, I guess I'll pick them. And it used to be I used to put them on in the gym just so I get angry and run faster on the treadmill.
That's brilliant. I love it.
I remember, Bill O'Reilly's sun goes up, sun comes down. You can't explain that. You remember that famous bit?
I don't remember that bit. No.
I can't remember who he was interviewing, but he was like, there are things we can't explain. Tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain this. Sun goes up, sun comes down. And the dude there was like, Are you joking? We explained this 500 years ago. Like, what are you talking?
A little behind.
But so, I can drag Fox News where they used to be, but I think Tucker Carlson is now, he's the best guy on cable TV.
He's the best guy on cable TV. I absolutely agree. And gives the straight, I mean, obviously still biased. We're all biased in some way, but at least he gives, I think, a take that matches up with reality more than the rest.
He does.
The rest is living in that 1984 version of whatever is rewritten today is now fact, and they're believing it. And he's not doing that. And I don't know. Get over your embarrassment. I had to get over my embarrassment of saying that I like Tucker Carlson now.
I was in Portland, and this is a crazy thing. A couple of years ago, I was in Portland. There was a right-wing event. There was a left-wing event. I actually had some Antifa see me, and I was like, oh, here it goes. And it was some young women, and they walked up, and this one woman goes, "I think you're really awesome, but I got to keep it quiet because people might get mad I said that."
That's so
this was like a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, I think, when I was in Portland. Maybe 3, actually. It's been a long time. But this is at a time when I was covering and interviewing right-wing people, and the left was attacking me for it. And there was a couple people in Portland who were overtly in black bloc saying like, "Yo, keep it up, man. Just, I can't let people, I'm not going to high five you because people are going to." Yeah. So I don't know what the deal is with these people, but I was in Portland. There was a ton of people. I was at a bar, and this guy walks over and gave me a bottle of hot sauce. And I was like, "What is this?" And he goes, "You're Tim Pool, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Hey, man, good job. Here, you can have this. It's on the house." And it was really good. And there were people in Portland who were straight up like, "I know what you do. You do a great job. Like, we need this." And I was critical of Antifa and Black Bloc the entire time.
Wow.
But I bring the story up because I was standing on a street corner, and one of these lefties was talking to me, saying like, "What do you think about the fake news and all this stuff?" And I mentioned, I think Tucker Carlson's actually does a good job. I think, a lot. I do like Anderson Cooper a little bit, but he's certainly gone off the deep end in a lot of ways. I used to be a bigger fan, and I think Tucker Carlson does a pretty good job. Somebody filmed it, some lefty filmed it, and then like tried making it a scandal. Tim Pool likes Tucker Carlson. Oh.
Did they turn it into a song? Were you singing
No. They were just trying to. Nobody cared.
Cool.
Nobody cares. They like it's Tim Pool's a milquetoast fence sitter. Nobody. The hit pieces on me are like, they don't stick because I'm too boring. It's true. So they try, and it's like that dude. He's
milquetoast fence sitter. What does that mean? That you're not? They think they want you to pick a political party.
Well, so I don't know who coined this. It was a comment on a video a long time ago. They said Tim Pool is a milquetoast fence sitter, and milquetoast is a reference to this old comic.
Right, I know what milquetoast means, but
right.
But what do they say? What do they? Like
I won't join any faction.
You're fence sitting on parties or candidates or
everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I'd be like, well, look, the Democrats are at least saying this, and the Republicans are saying this. To be completely honest, I don't think it's fair to say I'm a milquetoast fence sitter. Like literally, I think it's a funny joke.
Yeah.
But I've straight up was like, I'm going to vote for Trump because the Democrats have gone completely insane, pending some changes.
Me too. Like, I'm interested in, people ask me, what about Unity 2020? You said you kind of like that, and I do.
Yeah.
And if something materializes with that and there's a viable candidate who's a liberal that I like, I would consider that still. But as of today, I think I'm probably voting for Trump.
Yeah, look, Trump tried to pull our troops out of Afghanistan. That to me was like, he could have handed me $100 bill. You know what I mean? I love that he did that. He's talking about pardoning some people. We'll see if he actually pulls it off. These are little, it's whispering sweet nothings. We'll see if he actually does anything. But I think he's improved. I think the war thing is really, really big. And with the riots going on, the Democrats calling them peaceful protests and lying, the media lying about it. I tell you, man, I read articles on this every morning. I wake up for 81 days. Like, here's the morning update on the riots because they happen every night. And these websites just say protester, demonstrator. And it's the funniest sentence when it's something like, a cop was bludgeoned to a concussion by a demonstrator. I'm like, no. That's like they barricaded the exits to the police department and tried to burn it down.
Yeah.
Demonstrators tried to burn down a police department with human beings inside. So anyway, my point is, the Unity 2020 thing I think is interesting, but I'm not confident. Look, it's possible they pull out a candidate who's got a bunch of good things behind them.
They don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to win. And I'll tell you what, man, if Trump he's literally trying to withdraw from Afghanistan, that's not a promise. He's literally trying to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. That was a big deal for me with Obama. It struck me emotionally, and now Trump literally did it. So I'm like, and that's the best I can do. I don't care about your tribe. I don't care about getting canceled. I don't care what you think about the Orange Man. I care about bringing the remainder of our troops out of the Middle Eastern countries and sealing this bit of history off. And it's a blight on the past 20 years for this country.
Well, what you just described is what we talked about earlier, having principles that are up here above party or tribe or ideology. So it's like, if I believe in peace and I want less war, well, I'm going to pick the candidate that looks like they're leading us towards less war. Or if I believe in free speech, I've got to go with the candidate that supports free speech. And it doesn't matter if they're in your party or not. Get over that your identity is linked to whatever your political beliefs are. That's stupid.
If it was Bernie Sanders doing the same thing, I'd be like, I'll take what I can get.
I voted for Tulsi in the primaries. If she were running, I probably wouldn't be voting for Trump. I'd probably be voting for her.
Yeah. I supported Tulsi specifically because of her stance on war, but also her willingness to reach across the aisle, try and communicate with Trump supporters and conservatives. She was fairly progressive, and there was a lot of things I didn't like about her campaign. I mean, she's opposed to nuclear energy, fairly progressive, but more in line with, I've gone through a lot of her policies, and I was like, the war thing right off the bat. I was like, that's kind of what I want. Everything else, I'm kind of like, don't like that, but that's okay. And I think she was willing to compromise by having real conversations. That to me was important.
That's huge.
And she's a major
and
National
she did
Guard.
not speak woke.
Totally. And the bombs she dropped on Kamala Harris, I was like, everybody was
that
like,
was a war crime, man.
Yeah, that was
seriously the only war crime she'll ever okay.
A violation of one of those conventions. I don't know, Hague, Geneva, whatever. But
Geneva.
I was so happy.
That's great.
So happy.
I love that.
And when she supported impeachment, I was really let down.
Yeah.
That was such a fake, stupid, what was I don't know, man. But I can respect that she ended up, what did she do? She abstained, I guess, in the end. I can't remember. It's been a while.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think she did.
Yeah.
I can respect her efforts. You know, to me, I may not agree with a lot of her policies, but I felt it was really important to support people like Yang and Tulsi because they were trying to have some kind of unity. And so while I could say this, if we had a politician who was, I don't know, probably out there on some policy ideas on the left, but their whole, campaign was like working with Trump and Trump supporters to bring America together, I'd happily support that. We've got this insane division in this country, and we can easily have conversations with anybody, but the left is just unwilling for the most part. They'll have debates. They always love to say like, I'll challenge you to a debate. And there are some people on the left that I absolutely respect. There's a lot of people on the left who are willing to have real conversations. They're not the super woke, fairly progressive, however. But there's too many on the left that, and probably a lot of these sleeper cell type people you've mentioned, it's impossible to get through to and have conversations with.
Yeah, well, they don't want to. So one of the things I started doing after the election was I started these things called civility dinners. And I started doing these in Austin, Texas, and we would get together people on the left and the right. So we had Trump voters, Clinton voters, third party voters, not whatever. Everyone came, different religions, atheists, and then we just have dinner and talk. And when people ask me about them, they're like, well, how do you handle, when people get really angry at each other? But the thing is, they self-select for people who are hungry to discuss things again with those who disagree with them. So we don't get ideologues. We don't get social justice warriors, which are the ideologues on the left, and we don't get white nationalists or any ideologues from the right. We get people who want to talk with other people who disagree.
I don't even, the left and the right thing in this country just makes no sense.
It's not important anymore. Not right now. I don't think it is.
Well, I just mean in terms of like far left and far right.
Oh, okay.
I always struggle with this to try and describe, because white nationalists aren't necessarily far right by like, not economically at least. They're not laissez-faire capitalists. They're not anarcho-capitalists. They're not libertarians. They're not going to be voting for Ron Paul, to get on the gold standard.
Well, Hitler was a socialist in that economically, right?
So that's a really interesting debate, that they like to have.
I know that's a debate, but he did talk about.
I get my understanding that I've pieced together, and I'm not going to pretend to be a historian on any of this stuff, was that it was kind of like for his select group of people, socialism,
right?
And so it was like ethno-socialism or something. He, they like to say he's far right authoritarian. What I've kind of pieced together is that there's two different lefts and rights as we talk about it. There's cultural and economic. And so this is the problem with the right. There's actually not necessarily a real far right. And you can actually go to the Anti-Defamation League's website and see they have multiple categories for what they constitute far right. It makes no sense. Anti-government, far right. White supremacist, far right. Sovereign citizen, far right.
Super government, far right.
Yeah, exactly. And like they label a guy far left who was an ethno-supremacist, but he was a black identity extremist. So he had the same ideology as a white nationalist, but his skin color determined left wing. That's not fair to the left. You know what I mean? Like, so what I end up seeing is you have a left in this country. The far left are both economic and culturally far left in the sense that they're ultra progressive, erase the traditions, tear down the founding fathers, and also communism.
Right.
But then in terms of the far right, we don't have a very powerful and active mainstream anarcho-capitalist base. We don't have a very powerful and prominent libertarian, base. The Libertarian Party is the third biggest party, so they're fairly large, but they're not nearly as powerful as the woke people are with all the major corporations on their
not
side.
At all.
And we have a very microscopic, ultra-traditionalist right, which, may overlap with some white nationalists, or many of them probably, but they're, particularly irrelevant.
Here's what scares me, though, is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? This law that exists. So I am afraid that the social justice left, which is the biggest threat, I think, currently to our culture, to not just to America, but to Western civilization. I think this ideology is cancerous, it's evil, and I think history shows us where it's going to lead. that ideology being so dominant, I'm afraid, is also going to create this reactionary boogeyman that they keep pretending exists. Because like you, I think it's been pretty inconsequential. Nobody was showing up for KKK rallies a few years ago.
Yeah.
People rightfully pointed at those guys and laughed. And now this social justice left being embraced by the mainstream is pushing people there.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Well, no, you are correct, but in a different way.
Okay.
They are this group.
Interesting.
Robin DiAngelo says she's a racist. She's in her book.
Yeah.
She says she is.
She does.
And she is a white woman who is an avowed racist, telling white people to have a racial awakening to make the world a better place. And that is opening the door to creating those groups. And then when it comes from the Democratic Party, I'm like, well, that aligns with history.
Well, and look at what they're pushing now, Tim. I don't know if you saw, but the Smithsonian museums, they were pushing this stuff about whiteness culture.
Totally.
And we're reading it off, and it's all, and I learned this stuff in school, but now it's mainstream guys, and they're saying, so things like being on time,
time
working
itself,
hard, the concept of time, working hard, strength, perseverance, survival skills, reason, logic, individualism, math, having a family, that these things are all functions of whiteness. How racist is that towards anyone who's not white?
Yes, absolutely. That is such. I have had this argument over and over with these people. These white SJWs. This is why I'm saying they are the white supremacists. Yeah. I had a guy actually tell me that the concept of time was created by white Europeans and then spread around the world. And I'm like, buddy, East Asian cultures were further advanced than European cultures, like way earlier. Mm-hmm. The invention of gunpowder. There's a bunch of other things, and I don't need to nitpick and stuff. But other cultures existed around the world that had similar agriculture. It wasn't invented by you, but they believe it. These people literally believe that white people made everything. And so that's why I think...
You know who else believes that? White supremacists.
Yeah.
Well, they are.
It's a 1-to-1 correlation at this point.
But so, call it teardrop theory, call it horseshoe theory. Some people are creating a new circle thing. I don't think any of these things necessarily encompass what's actually happening. So that friend of mine that I told you was possessed.
Yeah.
She made a post where she said, it's time for white people, like I'm paraphrasing. It was like, white people need to wake up to what it means to be white and recognize their privilege and start taking action. And I immediately was like, you need to call me. And I said, do you have any idea what you just said?
Dude.
So I'm like, you are literally posting, she said something to me like, look, I'm not talking to you or marginalized communities. I'm not trying to disparage anybody. I'm just telling white people they need to wake up. And I was like, yes, white racial collectivism.
Yeah.
We experienced that in this country a long time ago.
Yeah.
And when I try explaining that California just voted to repeal, and the Assembly and the Senate repeal the civil rights law.
Yeah.
She didn't understand this. And so I ended up explaining to her, like, they've just in November it's going to referendum, and the Democrats are going to pass this, and they're going to take that away. So now you quite literally have the question of who are the white supremacists and where's the boogeyman? It's them.
Yeah.
They're getting rid of these laws. And they also like to say people are reactionary. They're reactionary. They're bringing us back in time. They're challenging free speech, bringing us back to an era when we didn't have it. They're challenging civil rights, bringing us back to the era where it didn't exist. Their ideology specifically says people should judge others based on race and identity.
And sex and identity. And see, the ultimate ends of this belief system are the destruction of everything. I mean, it's nihilistic. It's a destruction of individualism, like you said, free speech, everything that built this country, the destruction of equality. But here's the weird thing. There are the people who are in it who I think know what it is, and they're just in it for power. And
totally.
This ideology is built around worshiping power. Like I said, this, instead of being built around class, it's about power. When social justice warriors die, they say rest in power. They don't say rest in peace. It tells you what they value. And they're all saying a lot of that lately. Have you noticed rest in power? Mm-hmm. But so that's what they value. And there are those in it with bad intent, and they know what it is. And I have little respect for those people, especially when they cloak themselves in the word of God and try to sell it at a Christian church. It disgusts me.
Oh man.
But, or when they're selling it in the schools, it disgusts me in the elementary schools. But there are also, I think, the vast majority of these people are in it with good intent. I was in it with good intent for 20 years. And they don't know that the ends are the destruction of if you try to talk to most of them, like we were saying, Lydia, they don't have good historical context. If you try to even say, hey, your belief system is based in Marxism, they're like, whoa, tinfoil hat there, Keri. They don't even know what Marxism means. Yeah. They can't define it in their own words. They don't even know.
You just got to show them the Teen Vogue article. Have you seen that?
Which one? There's so many terrible ones. Which one?
The one that said that praises Marx.
Oh my god, I didn't see that one.
Teen Vogue wrote an article praising Karl Marx. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That people can walk around in this country wearing, you could wave a Soviet flag and people would be like, huh. Like they killed tens or hundreds of millions. It's like the worst destruction of life.
Yeah.
Nightmarish.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because you're right. They don't know. And they just wear images and symbology that they haven't given a lot of thought to, and they repeat. So a lot of people who push this, they just repeat these I call them the magic words of social justice. They just repeat them many of them are created to stop conversation.
Absolutely.
And they'll just throw these things out and be like, oh yeah, well that's your white fragility. Boom. And then walk, and you're like, okay, what is that?
So, it's really fun when I've literally used that against them. And they break down.
They don't know what to do. They're like,
Well, so it's really interesting. However, most of them say "F you" because they don't play by the rules. Mm-hmm. I've been in arguments with some of these SJWs. They're typically white, and I'll say they'll say something. Well, that's just white fragility, and I'll say, actually, I'm not white, so you need to check your privilege. They'll snap because they don't care about the rules. They'll say "F you." You know what you're talking about. As soon as you try and challenge them and say no, the rules are gone. Because it was only meant to hold you down.
The rules never apply to them.
Right.
Well, it's the same thing. Listen, look at this BS. So one of the things I wrote in the piece that really pisses me off is the way that they're trying to conflate speech with violence.
Yeah.
So they have these signs that say silence equals violence. Your white silence is violence. Or like your words are violence. And the reason they're doing that is they're trying to take us to a place in society where we think those things are the same so that they can then justify actual violence. Like the videos you took, they can say, oh, that's in self-defense. We beat that guy up with a brick over the head because his words were violence. Right? And that's where they want to take us, which is a very evil place.
Words are violence and silence is violence.
Both.
What they're basically saying is say what we tell you to say or else.
That's it. And you know why that is? Because they say, shut up and listen to black people. Shut up and listen to women. Shut up and listen to gay people and trans people. But then they say, oh, well, not that woman or that gay person or that black person. Or not that.
Blair White.
Yeah.
Not Brandon Strzok. Yep. Not Candace Owens. Yeah. The list goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm still in a lot of social justice groups on Facebook because I like to see, how they're updating their magic words and terms. But they really say it like it's abracadabra, like white privilege, boom.
Yeah.
But the great thing about magic is if you don't believe in it, it doesn't work on you. And then they don't know what to do. You're like, I don't believe in that. But here's one quick thing. I've seen in these groups where they've indoctrinated a bunch, and like you said, it's mostly white people they're indoctrinating, and a lot of them are well-intentioned white women. And so they learn all the rules, right? And you'll see some of them in these groups who are saying, okay, and they'll post in good faith, like, here's a video of Candace Owens, like, I just discovered this black woman, and I don't understand what she's saying, but I'm willing to be quiet and listen. Because that's what they've learned to say, right? I'm willing to be quiet and listen. And then immediately in comes one of the social justice high priestess or priests of that group, and they're like, here's why the rules don't apply to that black person.
Magic words.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they roll over.
I experienced this firsthand during Occupy Wall Street, and my mom had a funny story. So it's most people have probably heard me tell the story where there was a white SJW and some various different minority group people, SJWs, and we were all arguing. The white guy called me white and told me I needed to listen. And when I explained to him that I was actually mixed, he went, now I see what you're saying.
Your point.
But this is why, for me, it's particularly, I don't necessarily want to say insidious, but problematic, to say the least.
Yes.
Is that, as I've often said, it's not just about Asian people, but particularly mixed Asian people. I called Schrodinger's people of color.
Okay.
But someone corrected me and said, no, it's Heisenberg's uncertainty people of color. That the position of their marginalized, status is dependent upon the observer You know?
Yes,
totally true.
That's hilarious. Thank
Yeah.
you for that phrase.
Which one?
Well, this happened to a friend of mine on Facebook, and I saved the comment thread because I just wanted to have it forever. And it was where this white woman, this white SJW, was going in hard on him and calling him all these names. She didn't realize that he was black because his profile picture wasn't very clear. And then at one point, he kept asking her, "What do you mean by marginalized people?" And she's like, "I'm not here to do your emotional labor for you." And, you know, and it's not my job to she was totally going off. And then at some point he says, "Well, I've looked it up, and according to your definition, I am a marginalized person." And literally her next comment is like, "I'm so sorry. What can I do to help you?"
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
gross.
amazing.
Who is that radio host? Do you remember this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember this. She was like, "You wouldn't understand from your position of privilege as a white male." And he goes, I'm black. I thought that your
He's
producer
like,
would have
"What?"
filled you in.
Yeah, it's like, I'm actually black. And
And I've been black my whole life.
It was remarkable when I told my friend that repealing civil rights law was terrifying to my family, and she didn't know anything about it, and said, how does this help your family? And I was like, is that a joke? Like, are you kidding? Like, it was, there are several generations alive today that lived through not having civil rights. They have no historical context, like you were saying earlier. Yeah. So to them, it's like, why does it matter? Let's get rid of it. I don't understand it.
I don't need it.
Yeah, I don't need it. So why should I care?
Privileged.
And then, you know.
There's also this real arrogance when, I think, in the belief system, where this tendency to look back at history and judge things through the current lens, and for people to believe that they're so much smarter and they're more morally upright than everyone else who's ever walked the earth.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. If you want to catch the full show, tune in to this channel, subscribe, hit the like button, or check us out on iTunes and Spotify, and we will soon have this podcast up for free on all podcast platforms. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next episode.